Hello and welcome to part 7. This time we're going to commit files to the local repository so that we can later push them to the remote repository. Okay, so this is the step that we're going for, right? Each team member is working locally in their workspace, and the staging area keeps track of what we have modified so that we can commit it to the local repository. And this person over here is also making commits to the local repository. So making these quick saves, you might consider them. That's what I consider them. So what happens? Right, we have some versions. Each of these is a single commit, each bubble, and we started with some version and we have made some changes and made a commit, and we have a bubble here that represents that, and this is considered the head. This is the latest version, so that's where the head, this is a kind of pointer to keep track of which version are we working on. And I have made some changes and they are tracked in the staging area, and if I make a commit, a new version is added to the local repository and the head is now pointing on this one. If I make another commit, a new version, and head is moved. So I have these different versions, so we'll also see how to look up previous versions. Okay, but that's the point of committing local repository. You save your changes. So a commit consists of some changes to various files, and it consists of a message explaining the change. So we're going to take a look at what should we put into this message, because it's important to have a good message for your teammates so they can figure out what's going on. Okay, but the commit I consider as a quick save, as I mentioned. There are some guidelines on how often you need to commit things, and I read a bit about it on several sites, and obviously there are different approaches, but I've picked out some of those that I think make sense. So the idea is to commit a single thing, right? Maybe that's a new method, or one read-write of a method, or a new class, or you fixed a typo, or fixed the wrong indentation. It can be minor things, but consider one thing. If you try to group multiple things together, maybe you're making a too large commit. Before you commit, it is a good idea to make sure all your code compiles. If you're going to push that at some point to the remote repository, then someone is going to pull that to their own local workspace, and then their code breaks, and that's just super annoying. So it's just good practice. If you commit too much and you need to go back and revert some things because you made a mistake, then you're just losing more progress. So consider the difference between quick saving every minute versus quick saving every 2 hours. If you have to reload, then you lose potentially 2 hours of work. You might be able to sort of look at the history and fiddle around and copy only the things you need to update your current version, but it's just easier if you can go back and say, okay, I'll just undo the last 3 commits because that didn't work for me. Maybe you tried out something and considered it a good idea at the starting point, but then you concluded, okay, this is not the approach to go, so you want to go back. And then it's easier if you have a more finely grained step by step to go back, I guess. Okay, so often I found multiple Stack Overflow posts about this specific topic, and people generally said 5 times an hour. That seemed to be an average. I have found that sometimes the refresh of the staging area and the committing process is a bit slow, so I feel it might break the flow for me, because it's annoying to wait for Git to refresh what has been modified, but maybe that's not so big a problem. Okay, so quite often, right, a couple of times an hour, but consider this one thing. That's a good rule of thumb, I think. Okay, so you commit some changes in your code or edit files or whatever, and you also include a commit message to explain what have you changed, and here are some pointers on how to write that message. It should be short. There is a suggested character limit. It should be concise and specific, so don't use filler words and don't be fluffy. It should be commanding. That's a general suggestion. Use active voice. So that means when you write the the message, you should think this first. If this commit is applied, this commit will, and then you describe what the change does in a short sentence. So if applied, this commit will fix bug preventing users from submitting the subscribe form. Okay, so this is pretty specific, and you can probably figure out what that's about. Now we don't include this in the message, but you should write the message as if you prefixed this part. So active voice is often a good idea to describe what kind of commit it is. Is it a bug fix or an update to something? Maybe this is a bit vague. Maybe it's a refactor, or you added a test, or you reverted something, or you started a new feature, or you're working on a feature, or you update some documentation. So try to include a tag word for what the commit is about. And then don't describe what are the changes. Like in this class I changed this method to include a new parameter for the arg method header, or I changed the while loop to be a for loop or something like that. Instead, consider describing what are the changes for. Right, so this here doesn't actually describe what was changed, but more with regards to the functionality, right? So what did we fix? Not specific which classes or which methods did we touch. And then finally, and this probably relates to the previous slide, if you have to write and in your message, you're probably committing too much in one go, and then you can split it up in two commits. Right, so if you have a list of things that you have done, that's probably too large a commit. Okay, so the format is like this. I found this here on one of these websites, which you can click on because it's a video, but maybe you pause it and type it in. So there's a bunch of good documentation on how to write good commit messages. And the general rule is your header should be under 50 characters. There's no dot at the end. You have a white space line here, and then you make a slightly longer description. And you can include a ticket number or task number or some ID, so you can see, okay, this commit is referencing a specific task from your backlog. So this message here, when writing it, consider the following. Why have I made these changes? What are the effects of these changes? Why was the changes needed, and what are the changes in reference to? That's probably the last one. So I think this takes practice, writing good commit messages. I'm personally not very good at it, which we will see in just a slide or two. So a few examples. This one is not particularly good because it's not very specific. You fixed a bug on the landing page, but what was the bug? It's not very clear what's going on. This one is better because it's more descriptive and more precise. The next screenshot here is from my own personal hobby project, which I only work on by myself, so I haven't cared too much about the commit messages, and you can see some of them are not really useful at all. Minor modifications. I have no idea what this commit was about. Removed some dead code, maybe, I think. So this is vague and fluff words and filler words. Renaming stuff. Right, so not these are not perfect. Far from it. Some examples I stole from various sites of better commit messages. Again, consider this commit will add margin to nav items to prevent them from overlapping the logo. Okay, this is fairly precise and understandable what's going on. This commit will improve performance with lazy load, implementation for images, and so on. This commit will enable logging globally. So try to keep this format. That's the suggestion, and you might as well practice it in your semester projects. Okay, let's try it out in IntelliJ. And I happen to have that open here. I have my little app, and we can see some of these are added, as mentioned in the previous video. They're green, so I can commit things, and I go to commit, and I can just select everything, which is a big commit, so maybe I should select. We can try, that's an interface, I don't want that. So remove the classes. This commit will set up the initial project structure. And I can write a message, oh, and there's no dot, and I have one warning. That's aggressive, non-syntax. Okay, what do you think? Set up. Okay, I bent to your will, IntelliJ, and I can write a longer description in here if I have something clever to say. I don't know. Okay, so that's the commit. That will commit my changes here from the stage to the local repository. I can also commit and push, which will push it to the remote repository. We'll look at push later on. There's some more involved in that. But I committed, and we wait. And I paused the video, but that took 20-30 seconds. I don't know. Usually the first one, and then it caches some information, and then it's quicker in the second go. Okay, so we can see these are now black. So they are unmodified, they are up to date. Now I want to add a, let's try this one first. Data access, this commit will add class and interface. So now I use the and, I'm committing too much maybe, for data access. And do I have, right, I can see down here under 40 characters. And not super important. Okay, I commit that. And 20 seconds to check the Git username again. Okay, I'll just commit everything in one go. Bad commit message in one go. And I have a warning. Okay, that's interesting. So that's probably because, so Git is very good at this. We can see that I have a field variable which is not used. So it checks my code before I commit it. And sometimes it will warn me. So I will just commit anyway. But that can be nice with these warnings. And it's committing. We can see that down here. So let's wait. And there we go. And it will also warn you if you put a to-do in here. To-do. I should remember to do something here. It's important. And you can see now it's tracking my console UI again here because that has changed. Important to do. And I commit it. And you will see that I get a warning because there's a to-do. So generally the to-do should be eradicated by actually doing what you're supposed to do, but I will override it and commit anyway, and it's committing down here. Okay, so I don't know how that's set up that it checks for this, but I know that you can probably customize it. I know that at my previous job, if ever I tried to commit something like this, throw new runtime exception, that's new, print stack trace, which is not supposed to go in here, then it would be rejected. I was not allowed to do this. I had to handle the errors. So let's commit this as well. Catch potential exceptions from print out, just so that we have some history we can look at in a minute. Right, checking Git username again every time apparently. Okay, so that's up to date. Now, if I wanted to check the history, compare my current status to one of the previous commits, what I can do is right click the class, and I can see here local history, show history. So these are my previous commits. We can see the message here, and we can see what has been done older. Why are there 3 files in this one commit? Okay, but I can see this here. So that's the latest one. Alright, this is my current, and it is black, so that's up to date. So my current is the head, right? And I can see here this is the previous one. Or I can go back even further, and we can see I don't have the to do anymore. Or down here, I don't have the printout anymore. Console UI. So you can go back in the history. You can see all your previous quick saves or your commits. So that's pretty neat, and you should be able to compare it to the remote repository also. I think that's the show diff, but we will get back to that later on, because I don't have a remote repository set up for this. Well, I do have it, but nothing is there yet. So I think that's all for the commit. And as always, thank you for watching, and maybe I will see you in the next part.